More WGP over the past weekend, so lots more set 5 results, and there's been an evolution in the standard format. So let's just go through all the results that happened and just kind of see what's, what people are cooking in the set 5 meta at the moment. So WGP Season 3 Hong Kong, the text I think is incorrect, but yeah, Fuzzy rejigged it and whatnot. But essentially it's 2 Rezael, 1 Black Prison Love and Berry, Odium, Varga, and Night Rose. So yeah, pretty diverse. I mean, Rezael is the only one that doubles up. And then looking at the top 4, so first was taken by Rezael, second was Love, third was Varga, and fourth as Rezael. So Rezael, I think, is a deck that is really strong going first. I think at the moment it's a go first meta. If you roll good, if you win rock paper scissors or whatever it is, you win in this format, right? Rezael is really strong and going aggressive, going first, and then obviously transitioning into Vita just makes the deck really, really good. Then similarly, WGP Season 4 Thailand also happened over the weekend. So this one had majority of Vargas. I think Varga is a pretty cool deck. I think initially we thought that Varga is, the big powerhouse of the format, but obviously it isn't. I feel that Varga is, pretty easy to kind of depict where the deck kind of goes. If you check blanks, you have a really bad day. And then if you check, yellows all the time, then you're winning the event, right? So 5 Vargas, 3 Lever Dress, 2 Odiums, and then 1 of everything else. So we have Love, Shoujo, Lucicia in there, which is pretty cool. Night Rose, Youthberg, and Rezael. So yeah, lots of, one-offs and, rogue decks here and there. But again, in a meta where it's going first, a lot of strat decks kind of struggle. And we only see 1, right, which is the Night Rose. But then looking at the top 4, so first place was taken by Lever Dress, second was Love, third was Shoujo Doji, and then fourth coming in with Varga. I think Varga, this is the first top for Varga, which is pretty cool. I know a lot of people are looking for that first result for Varga, and here it is. So looking at the Lever Dress deck, I guess one of the things to look out for Lever Dress is pretty much the grade 1 consumption, right? A lot of the decks play max recursion, unit recursion. So this deck plays 3 of the new grade 3, 4 of them. Pretty much you max out on the Lever Dress, right? And then you play 4 Huli, 3 of the Dual Nation, and then you play 3 of the grade 1 Restander. I think you do want to max out on the Lever Dress booster just to be able to see it. This is pretty much a CB1. You target anything in your back row and you essentially get back row attacks, so you'll always get 5 attacks, right? 1 of the Counter Charger, and then playing Habitat and Radiance Caliburn, so to pretty much, amplify your chances of getting, Lever Dress or any of your combo pieces, which is pretty cool. So that is the Lever Dress deck. And then looking at the Shoujo deck, Shoujo Doji obviously got hit in the JP format, but it didn't stop this deck from topping. So I guess the question is, what do you replace with Azasuo? And it's pretty simple. Forward Revertus is really good. This deck runs Shenri's and Forktail as well. Union in the Sky was there for the JP format. But yeah, like this deck, there's just a lot of other pieces that you could run. Azasuo was good because it created a bit of early game, but Forward Reversus kind of does that as well. So yeah, very cool deck. I mean, cool now because the ban list is obviously in, and a lot of people are trying to adapt to, I guess, the implementation being put into effect, right? Then the Varga list, this is pretty much where everyone is like looking at the moment. So Varga Rakshasa, you're playing the Glaive Dragon, 4 Shuras, 4 EB Cyclers, and he plays 1 of this EB4 grade 2, which is quite interesting. You're playing Ethan as well, but you're not maxing out on your new grade 1. I think the new grade 1's really good. You're also playing the grade 3 Searcher grade 1, 3 Rokusei, and I do see a lot of people play this deck, this card, sorry. Pretty much it's like an Order Searcher that isn't a Regalis, and you pretty much pick up like this, and pretty much like when you restand at games plus 10 once per turn, so it makes Varga like big, right? So I think a lot of people are trying to opt for that and then playing purple OT, and you know, pretty much everything else just kind of stays the same. So yeah, pretty interesting Varga build. I think there's another Varga later on in this video, but yeah, we'll talk about that once we get there. So WGP Season 3 in Busan. So this is Korea. 3 Raziel, 2 Odium, 1 Love, 1 Leverdress, and 1 Night Rose. And to be honest, I really like the top 4 distribution. So first and second both were taken by Leo-Odium. Probably my favorite deck from set 5, aesthetic wise, and just the deck itself. Like, it does a lot. You kind of have to play around and get certain things in certain positions, just kind of like, you know, a cogwheel, right? Or like, you know, the gears in a machine, right? You kind of get the cogs together and make them all work. And this is pretty much what the deck does, right? Third was Love and Berry, and then fourth was Raziel. We do have some decks, so just the deck images of the first Leo. So I guess we'll talk about kind of the engines that they run. So essentially, the irreplaceable cards are obviously the Distorted Bays, the Anachronos Dragon, and maybe the Colossus. Obviously, PGs and the triggers are like pretty self-explanatory, right? You play 8 crit, 3 front, and whatever OT. I think red OT is correct. Blue OT, maybe, but I think this meta is too aggressive and you just kind of need to kill your opponent. Especially if you check a red OT at any point in the game, you just win. Pretty much pushing your opponent from like a threshold from like 2 to 3, from there to like 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 is just devastating, right? Especially if they can't guard through an extra turn. So yeah, this deck is pretty good. This runs 3 of the grade 1, grade 3 searches. Playing 4 Tiskar, 4 Orion. Orion kind of makes sense, but I feel like this engine, it's slower. I think there's a lot of other engines that play Max Colossus and Laminia. I think that was an engine that I've been testing at locals, and I think Laminia is pretty cool. I still need to try Orions, but you know, Orion sometimes, I think when you get to the first grade 3 ride, you do want to see triggers, so deck thinning your deck, you know, when you ride up to grade 3 is always good too. So yeah, you know, on my bucket list to test. Then the second place Odium. So this one played a bunch of everything. Wait, did the previous deck... This deck didn't even run the Avarice grade 1. That's crazy. I think the Avarice grade 1 is like a must. So this one ran the Avarice grade 1, Filias, and then like 2/2/2 of like each cyclers, which is pretty interesting. Like Laminia makes sense to be able to call out on the persona turn. Tiskar is Tiskar, and then Orions to be able to deck filter. Plays 1 Carbuncle for 20k shield and plays Twin Cast as the Regalis. Red OT, which I think is correct, and pretty much everything else is kind of as it is, right? So those are 2 very different Liel decks, and I think, you know, this guy probably won the dice roll and ended up winning, right? So yeah, very cool. And then the 4th place list was the Raziel. We don't have the Love and Berry, but yeah, very shiny. SR Raziel, very cool. Full art Raziel actually looks really, really nice. But yeah, playing the order package with Tayfault, Biscottis, the grade 2, that Scries, Sergaun, Aerial Sage. Pretty straightforward, right? 2 Gabuelius there, and yeah, as straightforward as it gets. Very cool. Then we also had Chiho Cup Season 2 in Yamagata. So this is the one that Different Fight participated in, and he came, well, his team went undefeated, but ended up losing in top 16. But you know, after going OX to XO, very, very cool to see, right? So this one only had 1 block. So 7 Leverdress is the majority of the pie chart, with 5 Raziel, 4 Love, 4 Varga, and pretty much a bunch of everything else. And the top 4 teams though were absolutely cooking. So yeah, this is very unexpected, right? We expected a lot of, you know, going first decks, a lot of the set 5 decks, but you know, the winning team didn't even care, right? Brought Night Rose, Shoujodoji, and Harry, 2 of them being go second decks. Shoujodoji obviously being the go first deck. Second place brought Double Bat and BLANGDMIRE. That is crazy. And then the 3rd team brought Leverdress, Shunui, and Jujud. Jujud in this meta is wild. And then 4th place brought Raziel, Leverdress, and Love. So like this composition makes sense, right? But the other ones made no sense at all, right? But I guess like there is some discussion, right? You're playing in a go first meta, right? Everyone is opting to go first, why don't you opt to go second, right? And which is why Night Rise and Harry, you know, perfect decks to kind of go second, right? Shunui is also there as well, but I guess the player here, you know, could have chose Shunui and that would have been pretty cool. Like Stride deck just taking the whole, the whole championship, right? So let's look at some of the decks that we got from this. So this is the Night Rose list. So pretty straightforward, nothing out of the ordinary. You know, you're playing the order package with the 1 grade 2, one of the order. You're playing that the intercept auto negate grade 1 for Alvinas. And then you're pretty much everything else, right? This is a very grindy deck, playing red OT, and pretty much you just grind your opponent out and, you know, farm advantage, right? So that's pretty much what the deck does, yeah? But opting to go second in a very quick meta is quite interesting. I think Night Rose is one of those decks that can kind of sustain because of the advantage that it gets, and, you know, it just does well, right? A lot of people are still playing Stride decks, and if it's a Stride deck that they choose, it's definitely going to be Night Rose. Then looking at the Shoujo list, we did see a Shoujo Doji list before, but you know, this is the list. Forward Revertus again. This one is very high rarity, which is pretty cool. No 2 Forktail, 3 Shenri, but otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much like what everyone is opting to run, right? 3 Raiden as well, pretty simple. Then we have the Harry deck. This is pretty interesting. So I looked at this list and I'm like, it's kind of like everywhere, but if you kind of piece everything together, it kind of makes sense, right? So he plays this. This is the Favanil grade 2, but essentially is, if you don't ride, which you don't, right? Because you're striding, right? You can bind this card and your front row gains plus 5k when your Vanguard attacks, which is pretty cool. So like you essentially flip a G-Zone face up when you use this card, which is, you know, something that I think Stride decks lack when jumping from the first stride onwards, but I guess you wouldn't be able to do that first stride because you're riding, right? Unless you're going first, but you're opting to go second. So this would be like on the Harry turn, right? But yeah, it's pretty cool inclusion, I gotta say. Also playing the OT Remover grade 3 as a one-of, 2 Shout Applause Dragon to put in your Togs. You're playing the Walk the Dark Blitz order that can be played from Soul, but no Dark Side Princess because you're opting to call the Shout Applause and the Servant Facratia, playing Clockwise and the Tiskar Engine to be able to recycle. Cutie Paratrooper is essentially your extra copies of any card in Soul, and then playing Twin Cast, which is pretty interesting. And in a meta that is very quick, opting to play Purple OT is, you know, quite odd. I think you do want to play an offensive OT, I think, but maybe this deck it just farms enough to be able to cope with, you know, the early game onslaughts and then just kind of tank out. So yeah, very interesting list. Definitely something that is a bit weird, bit kind of like little bits and pieces everywhere. But I guess that's like how Harry has always been in every format, right? So that's Harry. Then we have the BLANGDMIRE. So this one's a pretty crazy BLANGDMIRE. So 4 of the grade 2 that gets the Underworld grade 2 order that allows you to double boost essentially. Playing Filias because you're always playing an order, which is either the Cage or the Underworld order. And none of the grade 3 that binds itself to draw 1. No Valcratias, just Vade Rock grade 2, your EB3 Cycler, because all of these guys can boost essentially. You have your 3 Evokes and 4 Filias, which is pretty wild. This is a pretty wild deck. Yellow OT is pretty interesting because you're controlling your opponent's board. Sometimes like you just flip the yellow OT and you just regain a bunch of advantage, and then just go through another turn and Divine Skill the next turn. Which is, pretty cool way to construct the deck. It's definitely something that is not of what we kind of expected for BLANGDMIRE anyways. Then we have a few back decks. So this one's crazy. So I guess for diversity cut, you use the Eva ride line, but you essentially play Bat. You essentially have this new grade 1 that allows you to put 3 set orders, and if you do, you draw 1 by sacking itself. So you immediately accelerate your Bat, but then because you're placing stuff in the order zone, I think all the put abilities also activate, which is, yeah, pretty crazy. You also have a new grade 2 that essentially gets plus 10k plus 1 crit. And then because your Bat restands a rear guard and himself, makes the restand with crit pretty disgusting. So yeah, very cool deck, not gonna lie. But I'm wondering like how you're able to get all of the orders into your hand to be able to do this, right? But I guess if you're playing like a bunch of this, you draw. I don't know, like I guess if you put this, you get a Shadow. Do you get the Shadow Army token? I'm not sure. Anyways, but yeah, pretty cool innovation. I guess we'll talk about the second Bat deck. This one is actually using the Bat. Pretty much same concept, 3/3 of the new stuff, 3 Savoid, and then just a bunch of orders that you're going to be putting into the order zone and then restanding with your Vanguard, which is, yeah, pretty much how the deck rolls. So yeah, the fact that they both put it into the same team and came second, that's wild. And then playing with a BLANGDMIRE that is playing a very controversial build, yeah, very, very cool team. Respect to that team. Then the third place team, Lever-Dress. This one is maxing out on the grade 3, only playing, oh no, so it has the silver there, so 4 of the back row attacker, 4 Hoolies, 4 Dual Nation, 1 of the little scroll looking thing, 4 of the Lever-Dress booster. I like this build, you know, it's consistent, very straightforward, just does what it does and maxes out on all of its key copy cards. Then plays Evergreen, which is the Regalis. I think Evergreen kind of ish makes sense. I would play probably maybe like Twin Cast maybe, or like maybe Union in the Sky, but I guess if you're playing Union in the Sky, then you don't get your EB for your grade 2. So maybe like Twin Cast or like Radiance Caliburn would be pretty good. But if you're playing Radiance Caliburn, you actually burn through your deck. This deck actually draws a lot. So yeah, that's Lever-Dress. They're looking at the Shiranui. This deck never changed. Playing 3 Destructive Roar, which is a lot, right? 3 Destructive Roar is way higher than the normal number. I think a lot of players play 1, even 2 at max, but 3 is pretty crazy. You play 1 Furai, 3 Forward Revertus, and pretty much everything else is kind of the same, yeah? Then looking at the Jejuled list, this one is pretty much the list that I played, except actually, did I play Jaws? No, I played no, I did play Jaws. So it's pretty much the list I've been playing for Jejuled, except you're playing this grade 1 that allows you to kind of pseudo put a grade 3 from your drop into your soul to essentially capitalize on the grade 3 Jejuled. And I think it's got like kind of the same notion as a lot of other going first decks. You want to capitalize on offense and then just kill your opponent on Ignis, right? You draw Ignis, happy days. Then looking at the Raziel deck, I think everyone should know now, play Raziel, the old one, in the right deck. I mean, yeah, in the right deck because it's the most consistent. You actually lose a lot of advantage without playing this, so don't play Vita in the right deck. Play it in the main deck. But this one plays the Keter Brandgate Dual Nation with Cadwala and the Top Searcher, 4 Sergal and 3 Aerial Sage. Yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. And then the last deck we'll look at is the last Lever-Dress, which is nearly... okay, so this deck doesn't run the 1 counter charger. That's the only difference. Opting to take out the counter charger, put in the scroll at 2, which I think is okay, but I think just having 1 counter charger gives you the options to, I guess, get it back. But you know, drawing 1 and 1, it's like not reliable. So maybe this play decided, yeah, I'm just gonna go with one side and not the other. So yeah, you know, this is cookie cutter as I guess. This is how I would play Lever-Dress, and you know, very, very straightforward deck. Yeah. So here is an honorable mention. This is Different Fight's top 16 list. He played Liel for Yamagata and came top 16. I think this deck is pretty cool. I think I've been testing this deck since he gave me some insight on some of the card inclusions. So his deck is very nice, very clean, very straightforward, right? Pretty much playing the base of Liel, so you're playing the Anachronos Dragon, the 3 Liels as Persona Red, and 4 Colossus. I think the Colossus is really good, just being a 10k booster later in the game is really strong. But playing the 4 Laminia, I think Soul is dispensable in this deck because you're not playing Gungaram or Orions. I think Laminia, as you ride up, you can just Soul Blast and draw, but as well, you can essentially, when you're on your Persona Ride turns, you can cast 1, call something out, and then Soul Charge 1. So you essentially get a card from your Soul, and because you're Soul Charging so much off your Distorted Banes, your Philias, you can call them out as well, your Colossus Soul Charges as well. There's just a lot of things Soul Charging, so your Soul just becomes a toolbox. He ends up playing the 2 of the grade 1 cycler cards that allows you to search for a grade 3, which essentially gets you your Anachronos Dragon or your Distorted Banes, and then playing 4 of the Avarice Wrestlers, and his trigger lineup's very optimal. Pretty much using the best heals and the best crits from Dark States, if it's exclusively Dark States. Red OT is good. 4 Distorted Banes, yes sir. Playing 4 FRs, this order is beautiful. Make sure you get your FRs. 1 Union in the Sky, but the only change I would make would be the Elementaria Sanctitude. Playing this one is less relevant in this format, purely because you're playing against Crest, but I guess if you're playing against Liel as a mirror, then this card is actually really good, because as long as your opponent has triple drive, which they do, Sanctitude just becomes a 1-card guard, right? So yeah, I guess that's maybe the inclusion that he decided to come to, and you know, playing against Liel mirrors, Elementaria Sanctitude is essentially a free PG. So yeah, that is very, very cool. And that is pretty much it for this video. If you like this video, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think of all the results over the past weekend. There was a lot to go through. So yeah, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.